It's 6:30. I'm going to call the Board of Trustees, Lamar Consolidated Independent School District Workshop to order on this, was it November the 19th, 2019. We have a quorum with everyone present. So, big agenda items today, so I guess Dr. Randall will get started.
The first item, Madam President, is that the Board of Trustees approve the 2020-2021 student course selection catalog. And you had the actual catalog itself, and in the board book is where we basically indicated what the courses were, the comments about what changes were being made.
Okay, go for it.
First of all, I had to write some of this down, but the first interest I have basically is that the students who will go directly into the workforce, and I know I've mentioned several times about the CDA credential. So when I was looking at this on page, it's covering the human growth course planning on page 16.
Of that.
Under where it says education and training. Am I understanding that that is one cluster or one group? And then on page 17, the human services. And when I was going through them both, it looks like they cross over. And the only one that mentions CDA certification is under human services. Could you explain that to me?
Find out. Yeah, if you want, because I'm trying to find it right now.
So, Ms. Kay, under education and training, that's the line of courses that prepare somebody to be a teacher and whatnot. And human services is the one where you're looking at doing a daycare facility or something along those lines. So those are sort of the differences between the two. They do share some common courses that cross over, but then get more specific as a student progresses through the course streams.
Okay. Bear with me for a minute.
No problem.
Okay. On page 61, and that's, I believe, more of a description.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is under education and training cluster. At the very 7420C, when it's talking about learn about education areas of early childhood, elementary, secondary instruction. At the bottom it says, this course can earn college credit based on articulation agreements. Okay, tell this bohemian, what does that mean?
Okay, so an articulated agreement is an agreement with usually a junior college that says if you go to that junior college and major in that area of study, and you've taken this course in high school, and provide that transcript to the registrar, you could earn college credit for the class that you took in high school. The caveat is that when you go to that junior college, you have to major in that line of study. So if you took another course that didn't have anything to do with education and training, but it was articulated, you wouldn't necessarily get the college credit. But if you did, you would.
Okay. Then if you go to, it goes back and forth, you go to page 65, under human services career cluster. When you look under child guidance, 7840C, credit 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Prerequisite. The prerequisite is that you take human growth and development, which is under education and training.
Yes.
Okay. Am I confused that if you go one court or one track, the second track is a little bit of that one, of the first track?
So we have multiple, yes, we have multiple courses of study where the first couple of courses can cross over multiple tracks, if you will, multiple courses of study. So you would start with human growth and development in the teaching, and then you could also start with human growth and development in the human services, but we don't list them twice. But yes, there are crossovers in multiple course streams.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the CDA, which is Child Development Associate Credential. It is something that students can earn while they're seniors, and I think they can start it in junior year.
I'll let you speak to that.
And I know of George Ranch High School. Those students will come and work with early childhood students, with the children. And they're not getting any credit toward what could be a CDA credential. In my mind I don't think this is being implemented enough or spoken to the students enough, because a lot of these students come in and it's a field day. We're babysitting. And I talked to their teacher, and she said this is the first year that she's ever been advised of the CDA credential. I guess my question is, why hasn't that been done earlier? And are we going to finally talk to these students about, you can earn this while you're in school, and you take your test, as a senior, you can test out, and you can have a job while you're going to school, preferably in education. And I know we don't have enough teachers, and I don't think we're getting them early enough. I see the potential here, but it's mentioned CDA in here, but when I talked to her and the students, they had no idea what I was talking about.
As we reviewed with Mr. Garrett, all of the different CTE certifications that are available and the ones that the state updated that allowed us for accountability, we have had conversations of how do we spread this information out so that students and teachers are aware of all the possibilities of students earning certifications as they're going these courses. And as you alluded to, many of the certifications we're working with our teachers and our students on is to allow them to have that career right after high school. And so we're working with Mr. Garrett to ensure that we're expanding the communication, and so that everyone understands specifically how to earn these certifications, especially the ones that take a certain number of hours that students have to participate in to earn those certifications. So we are working with that to improve all of those aspects for certifications for our students.
Okay, I noticed on where it has a list on page 19, is there anything in here about education or early childhood? I haven't been able to see anything. There's hospitality, information, law, welding, arts. And I apologize, I don't want to put y'all on the spot, because I know y'all have a lot of things to do. But to cut it short, I've had a concern for several years, and I just didn't know how or who to go to about it. But I think it's time, after seeing these young ladies coming in. Last year, I think there was only 6 in this one program, and my understanding that the only reason they had it was because the principal agreed to it. And there's 4 other high schools that don't push it. And if we need teachers, I think we need to have some kind of certification here to encourage them that you can start with this, and while you're going to school, you even can have a job. But I don't see it being done. And when I saw this certification program, nothing mentions anything about education.
The education and training program, it's a cluster from the state of Texas. And so in that, as Dr. Maxwell said, we are working to ensure not just with the CDA, but that we are having more conversations with our counselors as they're getting into the scheduling season to start identifying classes that will lead up to a certification. And the CDA, that portion of the certificate, is part of those conversations. We would wholeheartedly agree with you in regard to strengthening our education and training, and we are working towards specific actions to make that a reality.
Okay, well, just for everybody else, on page 65, that paragraph about the CDA is in here. It's been in here for several years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just have one more year on the board, and my goal is that we get more of these students made aware.
Yes, ma'am.
Because like last year, 6 students. This year, we have 15 just in this one program. But it's because of the teacher. She did some extra legwork and found this and started questioning it. And basically, it's free. It's an education or certification that they can get free.
We're on the same trajectory as you are,
Okay.
and have the same vision on what you're
But we can't
articulating.
combine these two clusters because that's from TEA.
They overlap sometimes in regard to the beginning of the coursework. And so a course might be in the health and human service area, and the course might be in the educational training. But it doesn't disqualify if they take a certain number of courses that are going to lead up to that certification. It's not one path here and one path here. Sometimes the classes will converge, but the path is the CDA and the path to getting enough information to pass that certification.
Okay. Is there any way by the end of the year, not this year, this coming school year, that we can hear a little bit more about how far we've come along with getting students to enroll in this program?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not asking
Yes.
for it now or anything. I
Yes,
just,
absolutely.
I think it's something that we've never addressed, that it is an extra certification that the kids can have. And it doesn't cost.
I get it.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is consider approval of out-of-state student trip requests. We're asking the board to approve out-of-state travel for the George Ranch High School Percussion Ensemble to travel to Dayton, Ohio from April 14th through 19th, 2020. The next item is we ask the board to approve the District Instructional Materials Adoption Committee members as submitted, and this is the first step that we take anytime we have textbooks that are up for adoption. Is for the board to identify those individuals that will serve on the committee, and that's what the board is. That's what the board. So that's what administration is asking the board to approve this Thursday night. The next item is we ask the board to ratify the financial and investment reports. The next item, we ask the board to consider approval of budget amendment request. The next item, we ask that the board ratify donations to the district. The next item, we ask the board to cast by resolution its 575 votes for a candidate for the Board of Directors of the Fort Bend County Appraisal District.
And those are listed on page 39. Yeah.
And they're listed on page 39. The next item, we ask the board to waive the facility usage fee for PowerPoint Elementary. If you'll recall, last year, the Kendleton, the Church of God used that facility for a training during the summer for the kids in the Kendleton area. The next item, we ask the board to approve environmental solutions, abatement design services and monitoring fee proposal for the Trailer Stadium press box not to exceed $3,070.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
My question is probably tangled up in state law, so what I'm wanting to understand is that we paid this company some money to evaluate whether or not there was asbestos in the press box, from what I remember.
Yes, sir.
And now we're going to pay them $3,000 to come back and monitor a contractor to come in and remove it.
That is
So-
correct.
So my question is the licensed contractor from the state not able to monitor himself
That is correct. They are not.
because of state law?
Yes, sir. And so the monitoring of the consultant will be taking air samples while the construction is going on. And then when the construction is finished of the abatement of that, then they continue to take air samples and they'll send those until the labs say, okay, there's nothing airborne, and then it can clear the deal. And that has to be done by a licensed consultant.
That's all I've got. It's just, it seems like it's not an issue for tonight, it's an issue for the state legislature, but,
You're going to have to move to Austin then.
yeah.
Unfortunately. Okay.
The
thank
next
you.
item, we ask the board to approve Bass Construction Company for the construction of the Trailer Stadium press box in the amount of $4,157,000.
Okay, I got another.
Okay.
I got several actually in the next couple, so you can just, whoever's
We're gonna have a
responsible, just stay up
Yes,
there.
sir.
All right, this is a big one. So we've been budgeting, from what I understand, or projecting $2.8 million for this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It was put in the 2017 bond as $2.8 million.
Total budget, yes, sir.
Mr. Welch, they were actually going to give you a brief presentation that may answer those questions that you have.
Okay, Trey Schneider with PBK Sports. We'll go into a little bit more detail on the press box and the bids that came in. We did accept bids on November 6th, which was Wednesday, and we ended up with two bidders, one being a local Bass Construction and one being Nash Incorporated. And so both of them are highly qualified, very close bids, by the way. And Bass was the, from the weighted criteria, is the number one contractor and for making the award for the presentation tomorrow night. Trey can go into a little more detail with that.
All right, very good. Thank you, Kevin. So to expand on what Kevin just said, so the fact that we had two bids that were actually very close together tells us that we think that the numbers are actually good, regardless of where they are relative to the original budget. Obviously, when a job is this far over the budget, we go into heavy mode trying to figure out where we think that this comes from. We discussed a little bit of it earlier. Part of it was so in schematic design, we actually tested the budget. We got contractor pricing at about $3.2 million. It was brought up that there was no contingency added. If we added a contingency factor to it, it would have put us at roughly 3.5. So it told us we were still well over the budget at that point in time. So when we got to design development, the attempt was to squeeze the job back. We did to a certain degree, but when we got to the program and to everything that was in the bond, we wound up adding that space back. The other factors that we looked at in asking around is we think that a good contributor to it is it's a high-rise building that we're building. It's relatively small in scale. It's in a very tight area, so we're limited spaces to how we're going to work. We know we've had steel inflation and escalation prices that we're dealing with. Still, I think the biggest is just not understanding the fact that this was going to cost that much more than what it did. Along with that, so code items that we ran into, We did, as far as adding things to it, we did add handrails to the walking aisles, mainly in the center portions. It's in the, really for the adult section. It's not in the band. It's not in where the students sit. So there were some adds to that. When we needed to actually elevate the press box and not remove any seats that were actually there, we feel that that's added a little bit of cost to the job. If there's a benefit to it, it does give us some added handicap seating up at the elevated area, but we think the vast part of it is that the structure is just costing more than what we had anticipated when we brought it in. And it goes back to, in hindsight, this is something at DD, when we presented it at DD, we should have actually brought this up, that we're seeing the pricing coming in higher than what we anticipated to be. But again, with the two bidders, so the other is contractors. We put it out on the market. We had two bidders. It got down to one because we had one drop out. So we had time. We extended the bid time frame. It gave us time to talk to contractors because there was a lot out on the street. We wound up with 4 bidders. One of them dropped out. On bid day, we had 2 submit. One turned in late, which we couldn't accept. So that tells us, too, that we have an active bid market. So their prices are going to be a little bit higher relative to just to the standard market. And so we think all those factors are what kind of weigh in as to where we have the cost overrun. Again, I'll go back to, we look at, does it make sense to try to repackage, put it back out on the street? We don't think that we get any benefit from that because we're playing with inflation, and because the numbers were so tight together, we just don't see that we're going to necessarily see lower numbers.
Where do we see we can make up the money for that budget? Do we have some areas that we can pull from?
What we're suggesting in the board agenda is to take that from available funds from the 2014 bond, and there is enough funds in there to cover this delta.
And get it done right the first time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Do you still have some more questions, Mr. Welch, or did they answer?
I always have questions, but I
No,
don't think
go
I
ahead.
have anything else on this at the moment.
Okay.
I have something.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was able to speak with Ms. Ludwig today, or this week in detail on some financial information, and so I had asked her if we could add the available funds to one of our reports so that we know, like, you know we have it, but we don't know, or I didn't know because the reports is not on there. So that's something I definitely like we discussed. She may have already spoken to you about it, but to have that, so when you say that we have it, I'd like to see where those available funds are coming from and what the balance is.
Okay.
Okay. That's a good idea. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
The next item is approve Terracon for materials testing services for the trailer state and press box in the amount of $27,700.
Again, I have a couple questions. So there's been a lot of things about the trailer press box, and since I've been on the board, because I went back and did a word search, and there's, $600 here, $1,000 there, $27,000 here. Is this part of the original $2.8 million that was put in the bond, or is this in addition to that?
No, it would be part of the original budget, yes, sir.
Part of the original?
That's part of the soft cost. When you say 2.8 million,
Yeah.
there's about 25% of that, which is soft cost, which is architect fees, and this would fall under that. Yes, sir.
So in time, I would learn that, but the issue with that is that I'm voting on stuff now, so that's why I asked so many questions.
Yes, sir.
Not a problem.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Next item, we ask the board to approve CenterPoint Energy blanket electric easement at Randall High School and Wright Junior High School. Okay. The next item, we ask the board to approve the deductive change order number 1 in the amount of $215,222.52 and final payment of $349,918.77 to Jamala Construction for the construction of Roberts Middle School, and authorize the board president to sign the change order.
I have a question on that. And I don't know if Mr. Rice, if you're the right person to answer this, but, so we're going to be credited back $215,000.
Yes.
How will Lamar, the school district, how will we use that money? Because it's been budgeted for the Roberts Middle School, and now it's costing that much less. Is that is that the right way to understand it?
That was one
Yes.
of the numbers that Mr. McKeever mentioned earlier, that savings from other bond projects, the board ultimately has an opportunity to apply those dollars to other projects along the way. In some instances, it may be in a case like the press box, but there were other opportunities. The board members had identified areas that needed to be done. They could use that extra money for that purpose. And in most of the cases, we always have some excess funds, savings from those projects.
So be it.
Now you made me forget where I was. Did I do cover? No, I'm doing cover now. All right, thank you, Mr. Ellis. Approve the deductive change order number 1 in the amount of $9,589 and final payment of $509,666.60 to Jamala Construction for the construction of Culver Elementary. The next item, we ask the board to approve CenterPoint Energy electric easement for the natatorium at Foster High School. The next item, we ask the board to approve Rocket IT Consulting for the installation of one additional switch to Williams Elementary School in the amount of $4,920. The next item, we ask the board to approve the design development for Jane Long Historic Gym renovations as presented by VLK. And we have a presentation for you.
So, Ms. Stanziger, members of the board, Dr. Randall, we have a presentation for the design development of the Jane Long Historic Gym. Mr. Brad Ewing of VLK is going to make the presentation. We're seeking your approval of this at the Thursday board meeting, and if granted, we will continue with construction documents and going out for bid in early 2020. Mr. Ewing?
Like Jim said, my name is Brad Ewing with VLK Architects, and it's my pleasure to show you our design development for Jane Long Historical Gym renovations. So what we've done since we've talked to you last is we've gone in with the user group, we the Common Threads program, and we've there we go. And we've identified the constructability of the project. You know, we've looked at, materials, we've looked at data outlets, flooring, and basically everything how to make that building function the way they need to. Looking at the site, you can see here we have a new drive come around the back side of the gym. There'll be a new clothing drop-off with a new garage door and canopy so they can process incoming clothes and items. There'll be a new mechanical yard enclosure and a new fence along the northern part of that staff parking lot. In the front of the building, we'll be providing a new canopy to provide shelter and new ramps for accessibility. Looking at the front of the building, that new canopy will align with the lines of the current historical gym. We'll be redoing the windows here to match the window treatments done across the street at the Jane Long Elementary.
You can see here the ramps and the railings for that new canopy. Looking at the floor plan, you can see there'll be identified entries for admin and a public entry. There'll be a reception waiting area where they can intake people, and then staff can escort them into the large showroom. Admin staff have a restricted area back here on the north end of the building. You can see here the drop-off and sorting areas on the back side of the building, along with behind where the current stage is. That'll be filled in, and there'll be a large storage area. There's also an infant storage room and then a multi-purpose conference room that will line up to the front windows of the building. So you can see here, this is the front reception area. There'll be areas for brochures, an area for families to come in, and a reception desk for processing. There'll be windows into the showroom. Inside the showroom, we'll be providing new flooring and filling in the stage, and new lighting and wall treatments for holding all the clothing items. As of right now, the project is within budget, and we're looking upon approval to move this into construction document phase. And if there's any questions, I can field those right now.
One of the things I would like to add is we have included the replacement of the roof in this project, as well as the windows. Those windows are single pane glass and wood frame, and heretofore the scope was just to try to repair the wood frame. But we decided it's really not practical or feasible to do that. So we have done extensive cost estimates and reviewed this with ELK, and we believe we're going to get all of that in for our budget. And now Mr. Ewing will present, if there are no questions, the design development for the Alternative Learning Center.
So for this, the design development presentation for the ALC and the 1621 place, last time we met with y'all, this site would also hold the CIBC, which is currently on this site right here. That program will be moved over to portables over at Jane Long Elementary. So in design development, we have adjusted the building to house the ALC students and then the new 1621 place. Looking at the site, we have separate entries for ALC off of the Avenue M, and then the new 1621 entry is off of Dyer Street, with the classrooms facing off into First Street. What you'll see here, there's a couple items that we've listed as alternate bid, and those are included to make sure the project is within budget. Those will be considered as separate items when the project goes out to bid. What we're showing here is 48 parking spaces that would accommodate the staff. Also, the city will allow us to continue to use the street parking. We're showing maintaining many of the existing trees that are on the site, and featuring a courtyard that the 1621 place students can utilize. Looking at the site plan, or the floor plan, you can see the ALC portion of the floor plans here with their entry and secure vestibule, intake area over here, and then your admin core and 1621 place on the south end of the site. Alternate bid items are to add additional flex classrooms and additional elective classrooms for the ALC students. We'll show you a couple of views. This is the front entry of the ALC building. Parents and visitors would come here to the front entry. Students would enter through the back over here at this ornamental gate to be processed into this intake wing before they go into their classroom. Coming into the classroom wing, through extensive meetings with the users, they wanted windows that would not distract the students, but we still wanted natural light into the rooms. So what we have is a clear story light that comes into the classroom corridors, and then upper windows there to bring that natural light in, but still be secure and not distracted. The 1621 place, this is the front entry. It opens up to the large parking lot for staff and students. This is looking off First Street where you can see the existing tree in the courtyard. And this is inside the courtyard looking towards that commons area in the 1621 place. This is really the heart of the 1621 area. It'll be utilized as a flex space. Students, as you know, come in and out of all different times of the day. It can also be utilized from the administration for teacher meetings or with the district for different meetings in this space. Inside that space, there's also a lounge area. So as the students come in and out, they can grab vending items or sit down and eat at different times or study. There's also a college prep room right off that area and your access hallway and access to the courtyard. We've also had extensive studies looking at how we would get this site built. This is this phasing diagram to illustrate our studies into that. So with approval, we would be moving into construction document phase and carrying through this project, and we are on budget. Thank you.
I have a question. I didn't bring mine with me, but at one point in time, did we have it apart for the younger students coming in, sectioned off?
The CIDC students?
Is that
The
initially?
CIDC, and they're moving over to Jane Long.
So they're going to be off the campus.
So they will be off?
Yes, it would only house ALC students, junior high and high school.
Okay.
And then your 1621 students.
Okay, and what about security? Are they using the cards, the teachers?
Yes, we've
And the
met
parents?
we've had some security meetings with the district. And are you talking about the students?
Both, parents, teachers?
There will be secure access areas with card access. As far as the student access, I think there's some further meetings that we'll be having with that. But we've had some, if you look at the site, we've considered security, enclosing the courtyard, also the connection to the shop, adding ornamental fencing. So students, when they're in their routine during the day, they're within the confines of the school, and the security system would alert if any door strikes going outside of the school.
Well, Ms. Kay, I think what you're referencing is, you remember, these kids every day go through intake.
Yes.
So that's their security piece. Every one of them have to go through that process to
Okay.
enter the school.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
they come in, they're processed into this wing here before they're
That very-
dispersed to the
that very
classrooms.
front?
I know that 1621 is not currently located there, so what happens to the ALC kids during the construction phase of that academic year?
They remain on site. They will, and this project is phased so that they can remain on site. And then when the 1621 space is ready, the 1621 kids will come over. There's some moving around. The ALC kids will be in their old building while we build a new building. Then they'll move in there, and it's phased that way. So they won't be relocated from this campus.
Well, this is just probably obvious. There is fencing where that detention pond is, all the way around it, so from Highway 36, you can't get into it,
That's correct.
play around. I'm thinking about the neighbors and stuff.
Correct.
So basically, you're turning it facing that way.
Yeah, working for the highway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, we ask the board to approve the design development for the replacement of the underground fuel tank storage.
And board, we do have a presentation on this as well. We've selected Morris and Associates for this particular project because of their expertise with fuel storage and transportation centers. They've done a lot of work in Spring Branch and have come highly recommended to us. Tonight, Mr. Matt Marek is going to make the presentation for you. The original scope for this project called for the replacement of the 3 10,000-gallon underground fuel storage tanks at the Lamar Transportation Center with above-ground fuel storage tanks. Now, we already have above-ground fuel storage tanks at the Fulsher Transportation site. So we're going to have above-ground fuel storage tanks here. It's all perfectly safe, and as Mr. Merritt goes through the presentation, he will show you the location and what they have come up with. So,
members of the board, thank you for your time this evening. As mentioned, my name is Matt Mark, work for Morrison Associates. Let's kick this off. So the location of the facility, of course, is the transportation facility located adjacent to the high school. Project scope would be to install 2 new 15,000-gallon diesel above-ground storage tanks, one 10,000-gallon gasoline above-ground storage tank, and the replacement of one 500-gallon waste oil tank that currently serves the transportation facility. In addition, we would be installing 4 new fuel pumps or dispensers, and we're also proposing to replace the existing fuel canopy and any related site work that goes along with the new canopy. Currently, the existing canopy is this white structure right here, and the underground storage tanks are located between this parking canopy and, of course, the fuel canopy. They're located about right there where you see those little black dots. The proposed placement of the new facility would be over here, where there's currently a dirt lot next to an existing drainage swale. And, of course, the transportation building is right here. Upon completion of the new fuel system, the current fuel system would be decommissioned and demolished. So the main idea of this is we would be able to get the new system up and running with limited downtime, be able to get that going, and then just demo that once it's complete. This is a blow-up of course, the area over here, just a schematic layout. What we would propose is that we'd place the 2 15,000-gallon diesel tanks with the 10,000-gallon gasoline tank just to the south of the existing drainage swale. These are the offload areas that would fill the tanks for the offload truck. The new fuel canopy would be located here, and we would propose 2 dispensers basically on each run of the islands that would allow bus traffic to circulate in and out either way. As part of this, there's an existing IT building that's located right here, kind of ghosted out, that's behind this new paving area. And we would be proposing to demolish that and expand the paving to allow additional traffic. This gives a good overall view of the existing fuel system to be demolished. The transportation building, green denotes the new fueling area, and the red is the existing building to be demolished. Our current construction budget, or the current construction budget, was $729,000, and probable cost based off of preliminary estimates puts it at about $984,000. And with your approval, we would be moving into permit and construction documents.
go back to the site plan. First one. We are over budget on this project, and it was my decision to come forward and present this to you because I believe the design that Morrison Associates has come up with will best serve the long-term needs of the district. When you notice the location, point to that again, of the existing fuel storage tank, there is a physical constraint between it and the maintenance bay. And in the years to come, when Randall High School comes online and Wright Junior High comes online, those schools will be served out of this transportation center. And so relocating that fuel storage island will help facilitate vehicular access on site. The other thing that we've had to keep in mind is keeping this service center in operation while this work is being done. We're currently serving roughly 185 buses out of this facility, plus all of the maintenance vehicles across the street at the maintenance and operation. So I asked for permission to present this to you because I wouldn't be intentionally going over budget without, in my opinion, good reason that will best serve the school district going forward. And further, it has necessitated adding some additional scope, such as a new fuel canopy. The existing one can't be salvaged. It would, if we move forward with this, it will be demolished. Along with the existing building where there is one IT person in there. Currently, the graphic arts department is soon to be relocating from the development center to the service center. And when that happens, this person would go into the existing development center, and that building would go away. So I'm here to bear the brunt of this recommendation, but I have asked the administration if there are funds available for this, and apparently there are. And so if you approve this tonight, we'll continue with preparing the construction documents, because it's our goal to take this for competitive seal proposals in early 2020 and perform this work so that it is finished before the start of school next year.
When you say preliminary estimate, you don't expect it to go higher than that, but because you don't know until you take it out to bid.
We don't expect it to go higher, but we really don't know until we take it out for bid. And,
So it could actually be a little bit lower, but you don't expect that either.
I'm going to under-promise and over-deliver.
Okay.
Very smart.
Stated very well. Something like this needs to be delicately done, too.
Yes, while there's buses moving in and out.
Any other questions or concerns?
So how many more, besides the two new schools coming, that you mentioned, Randall High and Wright, how many more schools could this facility handle, the buses coming in and out, roughly?
I don't know off the top of my head, but, and I'm not
I'm sure
sure
he's
where
got
all
a
the future
dream.
schools are going to go.
Yeah.
Certainly, there is growth on the south side of the district as well as the north side.
Yes.
And this will help facilitate that growth. Mr. Jones may wish to, have anything to add?
Well, I guess the short answer would be not many. We're pretty full as it is. If you've driven by, you've seen that we've got buses stacked around the fence, and we've done it because we're just kind of out of space. We've moved some buses to Fulshire, but because of the layout, there's a limit on what we can run out of that facility on this side of town, because it just increases the empty miles and runs up the cost. So we're pretty close to the maximum where we're at.
But we know we're going to have to add an additional terminal, but this site will probably still be serving the number that it's currently serving. It won't just go down. So.
Thank you very much.
The next item, we ask the trustees to approve Terracon for the geotechnical study for the Bowie Elementary additions and renovations in the amount of $4,300. The next item, we ask the board to approve Terracon for the geotechnical study for the Terry High School and George Junior High additions and renovations in the amount of $6,750. The next item, we ask the board to approve Calcemy Surveying, A. Jones Carter Company for professional topography surveying for the Smith Elementary School exterior renovations in the amount of $5,050. The next item, we ask the board to approve Charlie Calcemy for the surveying for Terry High School additions and renovations in the amount of $17,650. The next item, we ask the board to approve Calcemy surveying for George Junior High School addition and renovations in the amount of $14,250.
Okay, I have a question on those last three, but I wanted to save them because it's the same question. And this might, again, go to the state law, but again, I'm voting on it now. So, has there not been these surveys done in the past that we could reference, and is it?
There have not been surveys done in the past that are recent enough and isolated to these areas. So that is why we're moving forward to have this survey done at this time. It's very important to have up-to-date information before we start digging in the soil and adding new buildings, which is what we're going to be doing there. And so, in an abundance of caution, we're making sure we've done our homework.
Thank you.
Next item, we ask the board to approve the appraisers who have recently become certified, and the list of those 2 appraisers are available on the program description. The next item, we ask the board to approve the purchase of scanners from Dell in the amount of $121,450. The next item, the board received a change in the agenda item. You received it earlier. There should be one also at your table, where we're asking the board to approve an agreement with Red River Technology in the amount of $161,200 for support of security cameras, camera infrastructure, and software, and budget amendments as necessary. Get them all.
A lot of figures. That it?
No. We got network switches. The next item, we ask the board to approve the purchase of network switches in the amount of $155,749 from Red River Technology. Those are all of the action items that the board will take on Thursday.
At this time, do we have any audience to the patrons?
There are none.
Thank you. All right, let's move forward with our information items.
We have a pre-kindergarten update. If you have any questions.
Okay.
When we look at the, just kind of an update, as we said we were going to update you in August, we had the proposals on 10/25. We've had 7 early childhood learning centers turn in proposals by that date. 3 were located in the north side of our community near 99 and West Park Tollway. 3 in the southern area of LCISD near 59 and 36. And then the Tuesday after break, we will be, our team will be visiting the different locations that turned into bids. Each one of them turned into like a day of what that day looks like. And so our team will be going out and doing site visits to report back to you in December.
Any questions?
I do have a question. I had a constituent ask me the feasibility of this, and I don't understand this, so I told her I would ask the question. She was asking about the Pegasus program, and was saying if we don't offer the pre-K program at all the different campuses in the future, what would be the feasibility of allowing some kids to be a part of the Pegasus program at every elementary where it's offered?
Well, remember, our goal is beginning in August of 2020 to be offering pre-K opportunities for all of our kids. And so it might not be at that particular campus. I can't say that today, but the goal is definitely to be opening up those spots so that we are serving our community, all of those that are interested, that qualify. That is our goal.
I don't really have anything else right now.
You don't have,
I don't understand how the program is going to work exactly, so I should probably follow up later and see how.
Well, Pegasus is different from early childhood.
correct. It's a different program than what we have with our pre-K program. And that is a combination really of our 3-year-old programs, and it's our inclusion program for our early childhood. Tiffany, would you like to come up here and kind of add to this a little bit?
There's a third group that's involved in this too, though, in Pegasus.
I'm not sure what you mean by third group. Pegasus is our inclusive program for our 3- and 4-year-old students with disabilities. So I don't know about a third group.
The teachers.
The students of the teachers.
The students, the teachers, the staff's children are
Right.
included in Pegasus.
Right. So exactly.
So there's three components.
Pegasus are employees' children that we educate with our students with disabilities. So they're not eligible through any pre-K program. It's totally separate. The purpose of those students attending is totally for our students with disabilities so that they have non-disabled peer models.
And I guess that's what goes to her question is, if she was close to an elementary that didn't offer the full-day pre-K, could she not drop her child off at that school where there is a Pegasus program that's close to her house and have her children sit in on the Pegasus program? So I might be.
The only way that would happen is that if a child qualified for the special ed program, or she was a teacher in the district. Those are the only two people that, only two groups that participate in the Pegasus program, if I.
Right, correct.
Pre-K is different from Pegasus.
The all-day pre-K.
Yes,
Right.
it's complete two different programs.
My understanding.
Those pre-K students, oh, you go ahead.
Well,
They become pre-K.
all 4-year-olds will be eligible for the full day, whether they have, a disability or not. But to access Pegasus, which is totally separate from the pre-K program, you would have to, number one, meet eligibility criteria through special education, or you would have to be a child of an employee in order to access it. So totally different, because pre-K has specific state criteria, and you do not have to be a child with a disability.
And that's how it's currently configured,
Yes,
the Pegasus program.
yes.
But again,
I
one
do
of
have a
the,
question
we're
about-
working on is, again, with the availability of staffing as we go into, for sure, in August of 2020, in the hiring season, is to open up opportunities for all of our kids to attend a full-day pre-K program. And so the particular parent, even if it's not at that particular campus, we're going to have to look at geographical locations where a child could be dropped off and participate in that pre-K program that is close to that particular elementary. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't offer it at that particular elementary, but I'm saying is that we wouldn't necessarily, because it's a separate, Pegasus is a separate program than our pre-K program. Our intention is to serve, according to HB3, all of those kids that qualify for a full-day pre-K program. Does that help?
And they still have
Yeah.
qualifications for that. It's just not anybody can be in.
I think Ms. Kay had it.
Yeah.
Well, I always wondered, where did Pegasus start? And if it's my understanding, about 10, 12 years ago, with the other school board members, they're the ones who requested the program. It is not a state program under the word Pegasus.
No,
Correct.
Pegasus is definitely
This
Lamar
Pegasus
CISD.
is a Lamar CISD
Absolutely.
We
program.
would have the authority to change it, where we would agree. Is that correct? In theory.
To change Pegasus?
Yeah. Is that what
Yes,
you're
you would
getting
have
at,
the
Matt?
authority.
No, I
to
just,
do so, but-
I questioned, how did Pegasus get started when I found out that TEA said they didn't know what that program was.
No.
And so then when I
Pegasus
was
is-
talking to some
right.
of the former board members, they got together with the school district and came up with this program.
But
That's why
Pegasus
it's
is
not
an
funded.
answer for the inclusive requirement for
Okay.
our students with disabilities, because we don't have 3- and 4-year-olds at every campus where we have a PPCD or early childhood special education program. And so the Pegasus program provides a continuum of services for them so that they're not just self-contained with other students with disabilities. They have the ability to have peer models with non-disabled peers, just as our students who are in kindergarten through 12th grade.
Oh, I'm good.
All right.
I knew you'd have some good answers. You know your stuff very well.
The next item is first reading of board policy. As you know, you get this, and you will have a month to take a look at it, and then second reading will be at the next board meeting for adoption.
Dr. Rindle, these are the policies that are just sent from TASB, right?
That's correct. They're sent from TASB. There may be instances where we ask them to include them in an update, depending on what they are, and then they take and make sure that they meet the requirements of the law and the legislation.
Okay. I just had two questions, comments. So the first is on page 190, where it's changing the language to the superintendent is authorized to declare district materials, equipment, personal property such as vehicles, et cetera, basically to sell it for fair market value. It just seemed odd, the wording of saying that it's personal property instead of district property. But I don't know if there was a definition somewhere else with the, within the local rule or the policies that defines what personal means, but it just seemed like an odd wording. Four, we're adding the community eligibility provision. So it says, with funds from the federal community eligibility provision, CEP, the district shall provide regular meal service to students at no cost, as authorized with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which I know some districts provide, district-wide, they provide CEP meals to all students, like HISD. We don't do that. We do it on a per-school basis. But this could be construed to mean that the district shall provide regular meal service to students at no cost, period. So the way I read it, it could be construed to say that the district has to provide meals to every student in the district.
Well, that's definitely not what it's intended to mean, that's for sure, because we don't qualify for being able to do that like HISD does. But we will follow up. The one thing that we'll do is when it comes back, the questions that you're asking, we'll have responses for you.
And then I have one additional on page 195. And this is something that's probably of importance to the board. This is deleting the section where there basically needs to be like directors and officers insurance, protecting the board if they're exposed to individual liability by virtue of their official duties. It's my understanding that the district has insurance protecting the board, but we're deleting this provision from the rules, which is concerning to me.
Very concerning to me too. I have it noted.
If it may be relocated in another section, and to be honest with you, I have to take a look.
Okay.
Usually when they delete, it shows up somewhere else.
I just didn't see it. At least in this revision, it's not added anywhere. So if we're deleting it, maybe it's in another section somewhere else. But Mr. Welch has reviewed the entire local.
We want to make sure you're covered. So we'll figure it. We'll definitely.
This goes to a bigger question about policy. How is the local policy made? Because I assumed it was us 7 voting on things, and I'm hearing more and more TASB's involved. So at what point can we say, we like what TASB said, but we want to modify it, or we want to reject what TASB said because it doesn't apply to us?
Well, when it comes to you in this format,
no, just in general.
No. When it comes to the board can take and look at any policy that the board has and make a determination as to whether or not you want to change that policy. Administration can take and make a recommendation to the board about the change. What TASB does is they take whatever changes, they take and use their legal team to take a look at it, and then they formulate it in a way to where it passes legal muster there, and then we bring it back, and then, of course, Morris and his team looks at it again. So the board can certainly can add any new policy. They can look at any policy that we currently have, and you can make a determination as to whether or not you want to modify it in some way. One of the things that we have not done in a number of years was to do what you just did, was a complete review of all of the policies. And you've done that for us, so I'm
not the lawyer.
Yeah, but
a lot of it's over my head.
But typically, we bring TASB in, and they actually take and do a complete look at all of your policies, and then they come back with recommendations of any things that need to be changed. But they're the ones that keep us updated, and especially with legislative changes.
I know a few years ago, Mr. Steenbergen and Dr. Harrell and I went through every one, just kind of like you did, and we found discrepancies, and we found ones that we thought needed. We wrote them up. We had to send them to legal. They rewrote them to make them correct, and then we brought them to the board and had double reading. But we did, but it's been about 3 or 4 years since we did that. But we have done that. But it's good that keeping us on our toes.
So, like Alex, he covered a couple of questions I had. Is it best just to ask for now, or just, you want me to email them on if we're going to be looking at all of them?
Whichever you prefer. You can email them, and we can take a look at them, or you can
We're all here,
discuss them now.
Joey. Go ahead.
Discuss them now.
I'll throw them out. So on page 186, the second paragraph, I was looking for one more. Where it says board members shall channel legal inquiries to the superintendent, board president, or board's designee as appropriate when seeking advice or information from the district's legal counsel. I'd just like a little more specifics on that. Like if does that include just giving Mr. Morris a call when we have a question, that kind of thing? I just was a little more clarification on that paragraph.
Clarification on what it's meaning, or are you wanting to change it?
That we should channel legal inquiries through you or the board president versus when we're seeking advice from Mr. Morris.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is supposed to go through you all before we speak with
Or
Morris?
just let us know that you are wanting to reach out to him. I think that's in our board working policies.
And one
So we're not asking for permission, we're just letting you know that we're doing it? He charges?
well, every time you talk to him,
I understand.
there's a charge, and typically, if you ask me the question, or ask the board president the question, we may actually have the answer for it before it just goes directly to the attorney.
Just like vet it.
The staff does that same thing with when they get ready to have a conversation with the attorney. They run them all through me. And it kind of just serves as a clearinghouse to make sure that there aren't 50 people calling the attorneys and asking them questions, because every time it does, it costs us something. So,
Okay.
so that's purpose.
That's good to know. And then on page 188, we're removing all the objectives for the superintendent evaluation, but I didn't see anything that we're replacing it with, so I was curious about that. Why we're removing all the objectives in the evaluation instrument.
That is their recommendation, and to be quite frank with you, I need to double check on that.
I think because we have our own.
Yes.
And a lot of other school districts have their own.
I just
So
would like
I think that they're just
clarification on why
probably,
exactly they're doing it.
I think
Yeah.
that they're probably saying, we're not going to tie your hands to what we are, because so many school districts are creating their own.
But we'll double check with TASB just to make sure.
Dr.
that-
Randall, I
oh,
pulled my explanatory notes.
Okay, good. Well, you got it
So
then.
can I go back for just a second to the insurance question that Mr. Hunt asked? It said the local policy addressing the various types of insurance the district will purchase is recommended for deletion because these decisions are typically made during the budget process and there is no legal requirement to reflect these decisions in policy. So we do budget for them. We do have professional and legal liability insurance through TASB, but they're saying because there's no requirement, they don't want it in policy to pull it out and put it in our budgetary process. The personal property question, it says specifically that they've, in response to questions, we've clarified that the scope of this authority includes district vehicles and other district personal property. And then the attorney question that Ms. Williams asked, it said that it's been updated to reflect common practices. The recommended changes reflect that many law firms use an engagement letter rather than a written agreement or contract to establish the fees and expenses. And then the evaluation one, I believe that was BJCD that was just asked.
Yes.
It said recommended revisions streamline this local policy on superintendent evaluation by deleting specifics about the instrument in the list of objectives in conducting the evaluation. These changes were prompted by recently updated administrative code rules. The changes clarify that although the evaluation typically takes place in a closed meeting, the superintendent may request an open meeting.
Okay, if you want to stay up there, have a couple more.
Sure.
Let's see. Some of these, I didn't really understand, the wording looked the same. So for example, on page 192, the second paragraph, it says meals for up to. Scratch through, and then it says meals for up to. So I saw that a few different places. I was trying to figure out why we're scratching out just to write the same thing. Maybe I misunderstood
Page
that.
192,
So page 192, second
policy
paragraph.
CO. Let's see what we have. That's what we're looking at. It said a recommended revision to this policy expands the provision authorizing the superintendent to develop regulations on donation of food to refer to other disposal methods for leftover food that the district might want to permit, such as implementing a sharing table or selling leftovers. And then the Texas Department of Agriculture provided guidance on that topic.
But you see what I'm saying? It says scratched out meals for up to, and then just rewrites the same thing. So I didn't know.
Sometimes because they include, and I can only speak from past experience, because they include the revisions, they literally do it in a template using revisions. If they change a spacing or anything, it will pull in a revision like that. Or a
comma
typo
or
anything.
anything.
Like that, it'll pull in the whole revision.
I saw a couple places like that, and I just was trying to understand what that was about. And then the page 196, organization of instruction, we're deleting that whole thing.
Local policy on the organization of grade levels within the district is not necessary to include in a policy manual.
So where do we have that included?
It's not necessary to include it in a policy manual. It's an organizational issue.
So if you wanted to change that, you wouldn't have to actually go and change a policy. You could change it just as through the district and their board.
And then the next page, like I had a couple of them, like I think Alice was saying, we're just deleting it, like is it popping up somewhere else or why we're just deleting things? So I think the next page, 197 as well, we just deleted it, anything with no revision.
Local policy on community instructional resources includes administrative content that is not necessary to include in the board-adopted policy manual. It's recommended for deletion. Visitors to campuses are currently addressed in GKC local.
Sounds like they're just trying to tighten everything up.
Are we talking about, did you say 197? EFC?
Yes.
Yes.
That is correct, yeah.
I'm going to make a recommendation on that. And if this is not the time, someone tell me, but it says that, and I'm not speaking of the current superintendent, I'm speaking long-term here. If the current superintendent were to not approve a speaker, hang on, let me make sure I'm on the right page.
While you're looking for that, I think to answer your question about if you're going to make a recommendation to the policy change, that would actually be during the second reading. Because right now, the first reading is just so that everybody has an opportunity to take and look at the policies and get questions and clarification of policy.
Well,
But if there's a change, then that would occur at second reading.
I lost my train of thought anyway, so it's let's just move on.
And then page 209, student rights and responsibilities. I was curious as to why we're deleting the notice and parent notification.
It says the local policy on student investigations and searches has been significantly revised to align with common practices and current case law.
All right, that's it for me.
Okay.
Move forward.
Any questions on tax collection?
I just like to
Payment.
say I saved y'all about an hour by talking to Jill this week, so.
Payments for construction projects. Bond updates. School Resource Division update. Board meeting video.
Do we have any information for that? A presentation or anything on that?
You have the information in your board book. They can answer any questions or make any comments that.
So, Madam President, I believe when we spoke about this agenda item, we said that we could potentially discuss this at this meeting and then
Possibly do an agenda item at the end of Thursday night. So if there's any questions or any information you can give us about how this would work moving forward to improving our videoing of our board meetings.
Right, so a few years back, House Bill 683 came out and required all school districts with more than 10,000 students to begin video recording their meetings. Previously, we had audio recordings. So currently, this meeting is being recorded. It's the camera in the back of the room, and we have 7 days to post that following each meeting. We typically post the video, we process it and post it within 2 business days, and you can find that on the school board page. And so if folks want to come in and see what happened at the board workshop or at the board meeting, they can go in there and watch archive videos since the implementation when we added the video. There are other municipalities and governmental entities that outsource these services where you can actually look at different things by agenda item if you really want to dig into that, or it can be live streamed. We also have some capabilities to live stream the current version now, but the quality would be the same. And so we're just making it available to the board in terms of information that this is the current process with which we have recorded the meetings, and there are some other options out there, but it would be up to the board to determine if any changes are ever necessary.
So any of these options, except for outsourcing, which seems
Very
exorbitantly expensive, but post-production, which would cost $6,150 for hardware, and then live production, which would cost $9,385 for the hardware. Neither of those two options would require an additional cost for staffing. There's already a staff member that is LCISD staff that would be able to handle the cameras during that time.
Definitely, I think that. So honestly, currently there's not an individual here at the board meetings that would actually do it. What we have an editor in the district, a multimedia specialist, and does all the videos, the Randall report, those kind of things. He comes in after the fact and takes the raw video, processes it, and then adds basically the title to the front and posts it online. So if we want to do something live, we'd have to have that individual or another individual come to the board meetings and actually mix it or basically click buttons live. But that wouldn't be an additional cost to the school district, as that is a salaried employee.
But the post-production by adding an additional camera, is that a one-time
Yes, ma'am.
cost?
Yes, ma'am.
Where live production, that's not a one-time cost?
So post-production and live production are very similar, and they're both one-time costs. And so what you would
Okay.
do is, instead of having just the one camera in the back of the room, we would add an additional camera somewhere else in the room. It would be one or two. You'd also have the capability to record from the computer screen and the presentations that are there. And we would have an individual that would actually toggle back and forth between the board speaking, someone like myself speaking, and if there was a presentation. And that could be done after the fact, or it could be done live. But we would have to add a few additional pieces of equipment to do that. So it was more of having some different camera angles and those things. That can be done for a one-time cost. And I think here it's roughly between $6,000 and $11,000. And that salaried employee would have to be at the meeting to toggle between the things. And then that final option would be if you just wanted to outsource, like some other governmental entities do, that would have no district involvement really. And they would basically come in, set it all up. It could be live streamed, and they would upload it and link it to the website immediately after.
And so just logistically, we would be able to discuss this on Thursday night because it's an information item that's on the agenda, your thoughts from fellow board members, and then present a specific item of which of these it seems like there's consensus that we'd like to pursue.
We can discuss it Thursday to see
And then
which.
place that specific option
Correct.
on the agenda for December.
Correct, if that's the direction we wish to go as a board. Okay, thank you.
And the next item is the E-Mist Illness Reduction Program. Any questions about that?
Dr. Randall, page 239.
You've skipped the governance.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That big old,
The governance calendar.
the placemat you sent us.
Mr. Hunt had talked about the possibility of creating some type of calendar that ultimately would give the board an idea of future agenda types of items. And this was a stab at trying to establish that. This is a first run at it, and certainly can, on Thursday, could give feedback about the specifics of it, but if there are questions about it tonight, we can try to answer. Yes, ma'am.
Also posted online.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you, Dr. Randall, for putting this together in such a short time frame and for your staff as well.
Yes.
All right, is that?
All right, now,
yes,
E-Mist.
E-Mist. Sounds like.
Any questions regarding E-Mist? Madam President, those are all of the agenda items.
All right. So at this time, we need to go into closed session. Adjournment to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, and the time is 7:53. Session at 8:46. Is there any other questions or comments or anything we need to do? Then we will continue to be adjourned at 8:46.